I think that's how you start every episode now.
Just making sure we have audio.
Yep.
You look like you were still figuring things out over there.
No, things are figured out. This is the 100th time we've done this, so I've definitely got that part under control.
Did you hit start?
I did. Yeah.
Just checking the time. Do you remember maybe the last episode or the episode before whenever I was looking for my Lando Norris hat?
I do remember that.
And how it was very critical that I found it before the next Grand Prix, which was the Dutch Grand Prix. Needless to say, I found my hat.
I don't follow F1, so I don't know what happened in the Dutch Grand Prix.
Oh, well, Lando Norris won the whole thing.
No. Oh, I'm sure it's because you were wearing that hat.
Absolutely. Yeah, so anyone who's tracking along, you're welcome. Unless you're not a Lando fan, then sorry. Not sorry.
So you have the hat, but you're not wearing the hat right now.
The hat and the headphones don't really work out. I have it right here, Daniel. I can touch it from where I am.
Yeah, it's your emotional support hat.
I mean, before I came over here, I watched qualifying. Lando he got pole.
And were you wearing the hat at that time?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Obviously. I was watching the replay, but I think that the power of the hat works beyond the confines of space and time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So as long as I'm wearing it when watching the replay, then the power of the hat will still hold through. So
yeah, it's not bound by any of the physics laws of this universe.
Correct.
Welcome back to the Camera Gear Podcast. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Lucas.
And we're here today to talk about the gear, software, and techniques we use to shoot photos and video.
Did I give you an update on the jiu-jitsu match that I shot?
I don't think you did. We did talk about how you were going to shoot it, I think in the same episode that you lost the hat, but no, I don't think I heard how it went.
It went okay. It was in a very, very dimly lit civic center.
And that's surprising to me that it would be dimly lit.
I mean, relatively. And the autofocus did okay on the XH2S, but in order to shoot at a fast enough shutter speed to freeze motion, I had to shoot at 6400 and 8000 ISO. And so all my shots were pretty grainy.
Yeah,
and
it just kind of makes the image mushy almost after a while.
Yeah, a little bit. And so I essentially couldn't use the teleconverter because it was too grainy. I think I shot most of it 6400 and then 1/500. I can't exactly remember the settings because it was a little bit ago. I think I got one or two shots that looked okay. I think that jiu-jitsu matches look really good in a turnip bleach bypass color film simulation because it makes it look like a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie.
I could see that. Yeah.
Otherwise, it went okay. My nephew did not prevail. This was his first match, and I think there was two people in his age group, him and this other kid. This other kid had won 30 matches.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was really just the kid kind of hooked his arm around my nephew's neck and then just took him to the ground and sat on him. And they did that 3 times in a row. So
do you have a bunch of pictures of that?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Were you able to share all those with him and the family?
Yeah. Here's your son. You proud? No, that's terrible. It was good. I mean, it seemed like it went fine.
Yeah. Well, it's a different experience for you. You don't normally film sports or shoot sports.
For sure. Yeah, not so much. I don't know. It went okay. I didn't have any issues with the camera. I think is mostly that I was running into the constraints of sensor size more than anything. I think for dimly lit sports in civic centers, maybe one wants full frame.
Yeah, I mean that's what the R1's for, right? Just go out and buy an R1 just for the your nephew's jiu-jitsu match.
I mean, if I really want him to have the best pictures of him getting sat on, then that's obviously what I need to do.
Yeah, I'd say so.
It's for the family. As the self-designated family photographer and documentor, I think I have a responsibility to everyone to have a Canon R1.
If you say so.
I don't want a Canon R1, Daniel. I don't want one of those. I would take an R5.
Yeah.
Or a Z8. I feel like my father would accept me finally if I had a Z8.
And what about a Z6 Mark III?
We would be Twinkies.
Nah.
Which I don't know if I'm allowed to say that anymore. I got in trouble last time I said that. I was like, Twinkies. People were like, no. That's not, we don't do that anymore, Lucas.
Yeah.
I was like, it means like we're twins. Like twinsies, Twinkies. They're like, that's not what that means. Dang it.
I think we should just leave that one there.
I was going to dig in. I was going to be like, what if me and my dad were Twinkies?
Let's not go any farther there.
Just break. Okay. 2 steps back. What else is on this list here, Daniel? I'm still kind of pilling around here in pre-show territory.
Yeah. Well, you have some things about new phones here, which, I mean, I feel like we talked about phones quite a bit last week. So
okay, but now like my phone is being weird.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel, it's not a coincidence. Shut up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But like the digitizer's not digitizing completely, and so I feel like I need to accelerate my plans to replace my phone.
Yeah, because we have on tape you saying you were going to wait until Black Friday.
Gotta get those sick deals, man, and maybe not totally off the table, but with things becoming annoying, that with my current phone, that maybe I may have to accelerate my plans.
Well, and I mean the Pixel 9 has already been announced. The iPhone 16 is not yet announced, but is
imminent.
Yeah, I mean, really, by the time this episode comes out, I think it comes out like the day after those phones will be announced. So we haven't heard that yet, but yes.
But then like pre-order will be that Friday or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so essentially,
you got to know what you want to do.
Yeah, I essentially have to decide now,
or
lament over that. I mean, like all the rumors are out, so we kind of know what's going on here.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna have to build a pro con list, Daniel, and then I'm gonna have to present to you that pro con list potentially on this podcast. Probably not. This is a Camera Gear podcast, not all Lucas complains about his phone podcast.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is gonna be difficult.
Well, I mean, you're basically committing to what the next, like 4 years of your life are going to look like.
It does kind of feel like that.
Or 1.5 years if you get the Pixel.
Yeah, that checks out. Yep. I've been looking at the Samsungs, but I would feel bad if I got a Samsung.
As you should.
Well, no, because they come out with the new ones in like September, February, and I'm like, how about the life cycle? I really shouldn't care about that too much. But even still,
I
don't know.
I get it. You want to buy it when it's new so that you have the longest period of time possible for it to be the new phone.
Exactly. And I feel like, I don't know, I'm mostly get stuck on the video stuff. It seems like most of these phones are basically on par with cameras these days for photo, but the video thing, it's like totally different.
Yeah. I mean, we talked last week about how they kind of have taken different approaches, and it sort of depends on what you want to get out of it. So
I just don't know how much I should get stuck on the issue of variable frame rates on Android phones. It seems like even on like the S24 Ultra or whatever, if you shoot in 29.97 frames per second, it will shoot anywhere between 25 and 31 frames per second.
Really? That's weird.
Just like based upon processor speed or light or whatever. There's a switch on the iPhone of like let it modulate for low light where you can like turn that off. But it seems like the iPhone is more locked in on frame rate, and I'm trying to find information online if you shoot in the Blackmagic camera app, if it still shoots in like variable frame rate.
Yeah.
And I haven't quite nailed that down, but I haven't decided if that's a huge problem for me. We don't really like sync audio too much between phone cameras and our regular cameras, but it seems like that would be annoying if I ever really wanted to kind of expand my phone videography into a more edited workflow.
I mean, it seems like I would say it's almost indisputed that the iPhone has more pro video features than Android phones are going to have.
For sure.
Like that's clearly a direction they tried to go in with the iPhone 15 Pro. I'm sure they're going to continue in that same direction. And I mean, as far as the video stuff, you kind of have to decide like if that's important to you at all, or if you don't care about it, then maybe you prefer that the Pixel has some of those, helper features, video boost and all that stuff, or maybe it just doesn't matter and it's not really a factor in your decision.
I wish that I could get like a Sony Xperia 1.6.
That's one of those things that you talk that and that Tamron 35 to 150. Those are two of your cornerstone topics on this podcast. I feel like you brought Sony Xperia phones up so many times, but they're like $3,000.
Like three times.
They're so expensive.
They're not that expensive anymore. I think that the current one's like $1,300, and you can get a used Mark V for like $800 or something. The problem is the current version, the current phone that's out, they didn't release it in the US.
Yeah, so you probably can't.
So, like,
you can't really use it in the U.S. because it
you
wouldn't
can
support the right bands and
buy
stuff,
it,
right?
but it doesn't quite have maybe all the right bands, and I haven't gone through and like checked all the bands for it. Some people have done it, not necessarily officially supported, but
Yeah.
if I had a Sony phone, a Sony camera, like I could just sell all my Fuji stuff and
Yeah.
buy a Sony phone and a Sony camera, and then I could use the phone as the monitor.
There you go. And you would ascend into true Sony bro territory.
That phone has like a really nice DAC on it, and you can just plug your headphones into it.
Yeah. Has a headphone jack and everything, huh?
Yeah, dude. A headphone jack, and it shoots an S-Cine tone.
Well, if you like it so much, maybe that's what you should get.
I'm just going to import one.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go look up cell bands and then see if that matches my carrier, and then I'm going to import a Sony Xperia 1
Oh, gosh.
Mark 6.
If you say so.
The DJI app doesn't work on Android. Oh, that doesn't work. You have to download the DJI app like totally separately. You can't get it in the Play Store. You have to like go to DJI's website and download
weird.
it.
Yeah, it's not that way on iOS, which, I mean, sort of makes sense because you can't sideload apps on iOS in the same way unless you're in Europe.
Can you buy things in the DJI app?
I wasn't aware of anything.
I guess like maybe you could buy like the Fly More stuff.
Yeah. You can
I just
buy a
don't-
new drone from the app.
I don't understand why DJI doesn't distribute their app through the Play Store.
I don't know.
Like it makes me feel like they're doing something sketchy.
It kind of does,
Like
doesn't it?
if they didn't want Google like scooping off the top, that makes total sense to me. But I'm not aware of any paid feature through that app.
Maybe if you lose signal with your drone, it just pops up a thing for you to buy a new one.
There you go. Maybe. I don't know. I mean,
Save you some time.
I should find out. Maybe like getting an Android phone is more of a reconnaissance thing for me now.
There you go. Yeah.
So I can try out the off the beaten path DJI app. This is going to be a hard week.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know how you're going to get through it.
I don't know how you're going to get through it, honestly. I'm more worried about you.
That's fair. That's fair.
Lucas, stop texting me. What else is on this list, Daniel?
Let's, since you mentioned DJI, let's talk about other drones. So this was something I saw recently that I thought was kind of interesting. There's this company called Hover Air, and they've previously made a drone called the X1, and now they're making an X1 Pro and an X1 Pro Max because
obviously.
yeah, because that's what you do now. And I thought these were kind of cool. So maybe you've seen one of these in the past, but it's a little folding drone that the idea behind it is that you don't necessarily control it yourself. It's not like a DJI drone where you like fly it around, with joysticks. You kind of just like pull it out of your pocket and press a button and it takes off and it follows you while you're doing something extreme.
Kind of like that Skydog thing.
Yeah. Skydio is what you mean. But yeah, kind of the same idea. So it seems like with the X1, the image quality, definitely didn't match up to what you get from like a Mavic or something, but it kind of makes up for it in just being like really easy to use. So like you can pull this thing out and it takes off and flies, and then you go and like ride your bike or ski down a mountain or whatever, and it follows
Do a
you.
kick flip.
Yeah. And so they have these new ones that, it's like they're better in every way. So they have better image quality. Like the Pro Max can do 8K 30 now, which is kind of cool, and 4K 120.
Shoot an Apple log.
And they can, they have longer flight time. I think they can fly faster. So it's just like everything's a little bit better. But these
16
things are,
minutes total on a charge to fly up to 26 miles per hour. It's not going to keep up with me on a bike. What's up?
You have to slow down. Let me just slow down a little bit so this drone can keep up with me.
Humble brag.
It seemed like so these are on Indiegogo, which is sort of like Kickstarter, but they have basically like a guarantee that they're going to ship them. They're supposed to be shipping in October, so it's not that far away. The prices are a little discounted on the Indiegogo thing compared to what they would be at retail, but basically it seems like it's between like $400 and $700 depending on what you get.
It's got prop guards, so whenever it runs into something, it doesn't break the props or the person.
Yeah.
Or the thing.
Well, and I think the other reason they have that is because it's made to fold up and just like you can carry it in your pocket. And when they say in your pocket, I mean, that's not like, it's not like a jeans pocket. They specifically say like a cargo pant pocket. So you've got to have some baggy pants for that.
Or like a hoodie or a jacket with a
Timbuktu bag.
Sure.
But I don't know. I thought these things are kind of cool, honestly.
Seems like the controller like snaps on whenever it folds up and you can like pop the controller on it.
Yeah,
maybe?
so that's a new thing in this X1 Pro and X1 Pro Max. Now they have an extra like standalone controller thing. And so maybe you want that just so you don't have to pair your phone to it and deal with that whole situation. But it seems like it also gives some extra features, like you can actually fly it a little bit if you want to with the controller. And I think it can also use that to help track you rather than just using visual, like watching with the camera.
Can I sync it to my Vision Pro and then use it to fly FPV?
That'd be pretty cool. I don't think so.
Oh.
But that'd be pretty cool.
This is neat. This is a cool little thing. I mean, it felt like as different drone companies have kind of fallen off, it seemed like the market had just yielded to DJI. And then the U.S. government was going to say, DJI, you can't sell your drones in America. And then there wasn't going to be drones in America.
Yeah, and I don't know what happened with that, but it's kind of dropped off the radar. I guess there's other things going on in the U.S. news right now that...
Yeah, it'll loop back around.
Yeah. DJI is actually also rumored to be releasing a cheaper drone that's kind of like, closer to the price of these things, but it still seems like the DJI thing is more of like DJI's normal drones. Where
what do you think that they would call it?
The rumors that they're going to call it the DJI Neo, like NEO.
Man, they could have called it. They could have gone Nano.
Yeah, they should have. But I don't know.
Neo's fine.
I like that this is different though. Like it's not. I mean, even though the new one can have a controller, it's not that first. Like, so it's not trying to be like a better DJI drone. It's a totally different thing. And if I did anything that was cool enough for a drone to follow me while I was doing it, I would consider trying it. I think it's kind of neat.
I think you could use it to follow you while you're flying FPV.
While I'm standing still in a field flying an FPV.
Can you get it to follow another drone?
I don't know.
Because
that'd be cool.
Then you could get that FPV. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Be real slick.
Yeah. It'd be kind of neat if you were, filming an event outside. Just pull that little drone out and tell it to follow somebody.
Sure. Do you think they let you fly those in a civic center for jiu-jitsu matches?
So it can slowly orbit around some little kid putting your nephew in a headlock?
Are headlocks allowed in jiu-jitsu? I don't understand
that. Doesn't
sport.
seem like it would be. Yeah, I don't know.
I think you want to go for an arm bar.
No, okay. Go for the arm bar. Yep. Always go for the arm bar.
Yeah, that's my understanding. This is cool.
Yeah. All right. Which one out of these several links we have do you want to talk about next?
Okay, so like the last thing I want to talk about is the PolarPro because we're going to be on that one for a while. So let's knock out these other few things. What is this professional services thing that you posted a Reddit link for?
Okay, so there was a Reddit post a while back where somebody said it's posted a picture, I think, of their Canon R6, and they said, "Is this bad?" And
okay. this is a photo of like an R6. They took the lens off and they're showing the shutter, and the shutter looks like one of the shutter pieces has fallen down and it's like locked shut. It's just totally wrecked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
What did you do?
And how do you look at it and say, "Is this bad?" Like, yes,
that's
it's very bad.
Well, what I would have done is like crammed the shutter up so that it was stuck open, and then just use electronic shutter.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Just like get some pliers and like pull it out. Who needs it?
So this person's wrecked Canon camera wasn't the interesting part of that post, but what was interesting is that somebody commented and mentioned something called Canon Professional Services. And this is something that it sounded vaguely familiar, so maybe I've heard somebody mention it in the past, but I read more into it after seeing, what was in this post. And I think this might be a pretty big reason why, if you're a professional photographer, why you would consider using Canon over something like, Fuji or, whatever other brand. Because it seems like this is a special offering that Canon has. I didn't go and look and see if Nikon or other brands have similar things. They probably do. But basically, this Canon program is a thing where you have to qualify for it by having a certain amount of Canon gear. So they assign like a point value to every Canon lens and camera. So like, as an example, if you have a Canon R6, it's like 6 points or something like that. Or if you have an R5, it's like 12 points. And so you get points for these things. And their L series lenses also give you points. It's like all of the more like pro level stuff. And if you have a certain number of those points, and then in some cases, if you pay a certain amount of money, they have like a free one. But then there's one that's like $100 a year, or $300 a year. So they've got different tiers of this thing, but they give you benefits. So like, for example, you can get expedited service where you ship your broken lens or camera to Canon and they guarantee that they're going to, look at it within 3 to 5 business days or something. In some cases, they'll give you like a repair loan of some. I don't know exactly what that means. I don't know if it's like they reimburse you while they're getting your gear fixed, so you can rent something. They have some of the higher tier ones actually let you loan equipment from them if you want to try something out. So if you're a photographer and you say like, oh, that R5 Mark II looks really cool, I sure would like to try that for a weekend, Canon will just like send you one to try. And so they've kind of got this whole deal that's, like aimed at people who are making money with their camera. And, it's like, I have this $2,000 RF lens, and if I drop that lens, then like I can't shoot weddings and I can't make money. It's kind of like, it's aimed at that kind of person. But this seems like a really cool offering, and I could totally see if I was like a wedding photographer, I could see where this would make sense. So
I wonder
that was cool.
I wonder if Fujifilm offers this.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious what other brands offer. I mean, the one that really comes to mind for me is Nikon, because it feels like in that professional world, it still is kind of like a Canon Nikon game. I mean, there's a little bit of Sony coming in, of course, but it feels like Nikon would be the obvious brand that would need to offer something like this to kind of compete against Canon. But I don't know. I think this is a really cool concept.
It says here, to determine what level of CPS, Canon Professional Services, best suits your needs, equipment is assigned a point value on the qualifications product list, and points are accrued as they are entered into your CPS account to qualify for silver, gold, or platinum. Mm-hmm. So you got to get like Canon points to even qualify for this.
Yep.
This is pretty cool. I think the expedited repair stuff, like service in 2 business days, is pretty slick.
Yeah. And I think, a big point is that it's not just camera bodies, it's lenses too. And I think for a lot of people, like that might be where it comes up for you. Like my lens got scratched or I dropped it or it's not autofocusing. Like they'll fix lenses too. So it's a neat
So
deal.
Nikon definitely offers the same thing. And it's very similar in that you have like tiers and you have to qualify for the tiers and that sort of thing. They offer 10% off of new cameras for up to like $350 off, and they'll do the free equipment loans. They have a less percent off of repair. Canon offers like 30% off of repairs, and Nikon's like 25%. But they both do like free shipping and expedited service, so fairly similar.
Yeah,
I do appreciate that. Like for the Nikon one, it lists that for all repairs you get a loaner. So like regardless of how long it takes, they're like, here's a loaner until your thing is. Cool. That's, I mean, if like this is your bread and butter, that's absolutely worth $350 a year.
Yeah, and some of the things may not be listed on there. And the other thing I think is important to point out is that this program varies by country. So if you're listening to this and you're not in the U.S., you can get on Canon's website for your country and see what they offer. And I think it is different in different places. But I think some of the people on Reddit were saying that you can even send your camera in just to get it like checked over, get it cleaned, like all that kind of stuff. It's a pretty cool deal.
Daniel, Fujifilm Professional Services.
Oh, man.
It's easy. Just register any qualifying X or GFX system products at blah, 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 blah. When you've registered an aggregate MSRP value of $3,000 or more, you'll become eligible. Daniel,
I mean,
I'm eligible.
You're there.
I'm like so eligible.
Wait a minute. Will they fix your wobbly LCD screen?
I mean, it's a good question. Annual cost is $400. Obviously, Fuji's is the most expensive.
Yeah, of course it is.
1 year extended warranty on all new registered purchases, 30% off repairs, 2-day turnaround on all services. Some exclusions apply. Dedicated phone number and email support, exclusive access to loaner equipment, 2 free checks and service cleans. Man, I'm going to sign up for this, Daniel.
You're going to pay $400 a year for that?
It seems like a lot.
It does seem like a lot. I mean, if you're making money with your gear, it's not that much money.
I am making money with my gear, Daniel.
That's a good point.
You check my eligibility here.
Yep.
I needed it to have the free loaner stuff.
Yeah.
Because that'd be the money.
This is a perfect example of how that would come into play, because you have right now on your XH2S, the articulating LCD is wobbly and it's really annoying.
It's been that way for a year and a half.
Yeah. And the reason you haven't gotten it fixed is because we keep having these projects come up where...
Yeah, I can't be without it for as long as it would take to fix.
Yeah. Yeah. And so something like this where A, the services are expedited, and B, they might give you a loaner. Like, that's a pretty big deal. So
yeah, like it changes the whole whatever. Like I have insurance on it still. Like I can just call in that insurance and get it fixed, but like, I can't be without the camera. I think we're actually mostly caught up on projects, so this would be the opportunity.
This would be the time. Yeah, but will you? That's another question.
I don't know, Daniel. That's not a priority right now.
All right, we've got 2 more things on this list.
I want to talk about this Fuji professional services a little more. This is really exciting. Man, just think about like I didn't see where it didn't say that you get loaners. Like the free loaner thing would make up for the money. Because like if you've ever like borrowed a lens, if it's an expensive lens, that costs you $100 for a weekend
for sure. Yeah,
and you know if you got $400 a year and you get 10 loaners, I mean you could make your money's worth.
Yeah,
and I could borrow like a 150. I could borrow that 200 millimeter f2.
I mean, you're thinking too small. You could borrow a GFX camera,
Daniel. I could borrow a GFX the deuce. Oh my gosh, this podcast would be way better if I could just borrow gear like that.
It really would.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we need to talk to our local camera store and get them to, kind of work with us on that.
I feel like they should. I mean, I'm very popular there.
They see you there all the time.
Yep. I need to go pick up my film. It reminds me of that.
Oh, been a while.
TikTok, 30 days or something. It's getting close.
Yeah.
I have to rescan it because their scans are so bad. Anyway. What's next on this list?
All right, let me tell you about this app, and then we'll talk about the battery.
Okay.
So,
okay. Oh yeah, no, Daniel, this battery. We're talking about food. I gotta tell you about the battery first. Okay. Who dropped this thing? It was Manfrotto.
Yeah.
Okay, Manfrotto came out with a new Fuji battery, and it's just like it's a new MPW235 battery. Like it fits in the XT5 and the XH2S and the XH2. It's red.
It is red. It's very red, actually.
That's the only thing. It's $60, which is the same price as like a OEM battery. And so honestly, like if you're looking at a $60 used third-party battery and a $60 OEM battery, always buy the OEM battery.
For sure.
But in this case, it's red.
It's about 10% higher capacity. So a normal Fuji battery is 2,200 milliamp hours, and theirs is 2,400. So it's slightly higher capacity.
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever, right? Because that battery lasts forever. It's not a problem.
It doesn't matter that much. And I've bought, in other cases, like higher capacity third-party batteries. They still don't last as long as OEM batteries. Like it's just never as good. But like, Daniel, if you had like... If I might have my camera in my hands and like I knew that there was a red battery in there, whoo boy, like no one else is gonna see it, but I know, and that's just cool.
I mean, I will say Manfrotto's a more well-known brand than some of those other third-party batteries. You know, it's not like a Wasabi or whatever, but I don't know if I looked at the price, the $60 price, which was a lot higher than I was expecting, and I thought, well, maybe Fuji batteries are more than I thought. The Fuji one's like $64.95.
Yeah.
So like, literally like $5 more to get the Fuji battery. Even though it's red, there's no way I'm not buying the Fuji battery.
I think Manfrotto knows what they're doing here because like in every case, you should buy the Fuji battery over this battery unless you know that you need a red battery.
I think you're right.
And like...
I think you're right.
I'd pay $5 less to get a red battery. Don't tempt me with a good time.
If you say so.
Okay, now you can talk about your stupid app.
Yeah. So last random topic.
Does it work
today.
on Android?
Probably not, honestly. Maybe it does. I don't know.
I'm going to find that out. You tell me about it. I'm going to look into it.
So for a long time, Amaran has had this Sidus Link app to control their lights. And it's one of the best features of their lights. Like you can pair everything to this app, and then you can just pull your phone out and set the color temperature, set the colors, set a scene, that whole thing. We've known about that for a long time. But they just came out with a new app that's just called the Amaran app. And I do think they have it for iOS and Android.
It says here on iOS, Android, or Harmony OS devices.
I was trying to figure out what Harmony OS was. I have no idea. They also make it for Mac and Windows, which is really important because this app is kind of...
It includes Steam Deck integration.
Yeah, so this is kind of like a creator-oriented app. So... I what I picture is like a Twitch streamer type situation or a YouTuber who has like a fixed studio setup. But it's supposed to just kind of be like a friendlier version of their app. It seems like, it probably doesn't have things like color temperature and stuff, and it's more set around the idea of like having scenes and making, presets and stuff really easy. It does work with the Stream Deck, which is that little USB button thing that you can plug into a computer, and like if you're a Twitch streamer or something, you can hit buttons to trigger different things. So it supports that. And it just seems like basically you could set up your Amaran lights, like if you were streaming or if you do, work video conference calls, you want to have like a really good lighting setup. And it seems like this app is maybe more suited for that than the existing Sidus Link app. And I thought that was kind of cool. Back when I used to do YouTube, I had kind of a preset studio setup where I did the exact same thing every time and didn't really move the lights around. And, something like that would have been great, where I could just press one button and have everything go to the right settings and all that. So I think it's cool.
What would be really slick here is if this app had compatibility or integration into shortcuts, like Siri shortcuts.
Oh yeah.
And then you could like trigger HomeKit automations that trigger Siri shortcuts that like turn on all of your lights into the whatever modes.
Then you could just use them around your house, just normal lights.
Maybe
put them in your kitchen.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Could be cool.
Could be cool.
Could be cool.
Yep. I don't know.
I like that it ties into the Stream Deck.
Yeah. Those are very different things.
Yeah, they are very different things. Especially if you had like a desk setup or like a YouTube add a desk setup kind of thing. And then you have your little Stream Deck right there. You can like cycle through all of your things. I guess you could also set up a little tablet or whatever.
Yeah.
Like get a $100 Android tablet and then use that as your scene setter. Because it seems like you can set up your own like series of blocks onto the screen to like trigger all the different scenes that you've set up with those lights.
Yep. But yeah, like I actually have that sort of setup. I have a Stream Deck on my desk, and when I do video calls at work, I have a button that controls my key light and then a mute button for my microphone. So just some simple things, but those are really helpful.
Real
and
slick.
I could see using this app with some of my Amaran lights to just have some extra lights set up in the background and press one button and have it,
totally
like that lighting setup.
Yeah.
Kind of cool.
I like it. Makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
All right, now let's talk about what we're really here to talk about for what we're here to.
Yeah. I bet since you saw this the other day, I bet you just haven't been able to stop thinking about it.
Nothing has crossed my mind anymore except like this, and then that's it.
This and then that's it.
I can't even talk because I'm so focused on how obscene this is. All right, PolarPro. What does PolarPro make, Daniel?
Well, mostly they make filters.
Right. They make filters.
Like Peter McKinnon, TM, variable ND filters.
Not Pro Mist because that's Tiffin. But similar.
Yes. They also make that matte box thing.
Yeah.
And they have those magnetic filters, the Helix.
Oh, yeah, the Maglock things.
Yeah.
Yep. True. Apparently, what's this like drone thing that they have on their website? Anyways, now, Daniel, they make lenses. Garbage lenses.
Intentionally garbage lenses, though.
Yep. These lenses, similar to a lot of things right now in the photography world, are extremely strong in the vibe category.
Make any camera into a vibe cam.
Oh my gosh. Okay. They released, they're calling them, what are they calling them? They're LightLeak lenses. And there are 3 focal lengths. And this is, oh boy, Daniel, this is ridiculous. It's so good. Okay. These things are like, whatever, $350. No, they're not even that expensive. They're like $130. They're $130 each.
No,
let me get the
some
price
pretty low
right.
expectations now. But.
So fairly cheap. The lens is made out of optical polymer.
So it's a 3D printed plastic lens.
I'm talking about like the lens element itself.
Yeah. Okay. But it's plastic.
It's plastic. It's not glass. So it's got a plastic lens, probably plastic or copper construction. It looks very fancy because like the whole lens is like copper and black plastic. And the primary feature on this camera, besides it looking absolutely insane and horrible, vintage. That's what I meant to say. There's like a switch or a toggle on the back where you can purposely let light in past the back of the lens. Like if you had a film lens, old film camera or something, with like a light leak problem. And so like you can purposely add light leak into the image.
Oh my gosh. That is the most
amazing thing. I know.
I
It's
don't
super
even,
fun.
That's not the word I would have used, but I don't know what word I would have used.
Okay. It comes in 3 focal lengths, and I can't tell what the focal lengths are.
It's
like I can tell, but okay.
It's right there. It's right there on their site. How can you not tell?
Okay, Daniel, look, Daniel, look. They ship the lenses for XF. So like they seem like they're APS-C lenses. You can get these things in E, RF, X, or Z mount, but all those companies have APS-C cameras. So I can't quite tell if these are APS-C lenses or if they're full frame lenses.
I see.
Unclear.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it lists the focal lengths as full frame equivalent.
Yeah, full frame equivalent, 16, 28, and 50.
What does that mean? If I said, Daniel, this is a 28 millimeter full frame equivalent lens, what's the focal length of that lens?
Well, yeah, because it kind of depends on what camera you put it on, doesn't it?
Is it 28 millimeters? Like, I'm just like full, like one giant step back. I get that we use full frame equivalent so we can understand and compare between different crop sensor sizes or full, like,
yeah. But
larger
like,
sensor sizes.
In this case, it's like, did they make a different lens for full frame? Like, what if you put it on a Sony camera where you have both? Like, it could be either.
The focal distance of, or like how long is this lens is literally like the distance to the focal plane. Like it is an actual measurement. And if you put a 50 millimeter lens on a camera, it doesn't matter what camera you put it on. It's still a 50 millimeter lens. You can put it on back and forth thirds. You can put it on like a GFX camera. It's still 50 millimeters.
I think I found a clue. So when you look at the filter size of these lenses, I'm looking at the 28 millimeter, and it says Canon and Nikon is 67 millimeter filter thread, and Sony and Fuji is 58 millimeter. So that seems to me like it has to be, which this doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying this makes sense, but that seems like what it has to be is that the Sony and Fuji ones are APS-C size, and the Canon and Nikon ones are full frame size. Right? Like, isn't that the only reason those would have different filter threads?
Maybe. But they still, regardless of like which one you pick, it still lists the focal length as full frame equivalent.
I don't get it.
I think that what they're saying is that this is a 20 mil, like as listed. When you look at the not stupid lens, just calm down, Lucas. When you look at this lens and it says 50 millimeter on the front, it is a 50 millimeter lens, and that means when you put it on APS-C, if you apply the crop factor, it would be roughly 78 millimeters or something.
Mm-hmm. That seems like the most likely scenario.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pretend that it doesn't say full frame equivalent on the lens length, and that whenever they say it's a 28 millimeter lens, it's actually a 28 millimeter lens.
Yeah, I think that's what it has to be.
So help me, this could not have been more confusing. Like, because they go out of their way, Daniel. Like, I'm looking at this page and it says focal length and then in parentheses full frame equivalent.
Yeah. I don't, and
it doesn't change when you change the mount. Like if I switch between X or Z or E, it's just still it doesn't matter. They all say it.
I'm hung up on the filter thread thing. That doesn't make sense to me.
I think that they're just larger for the different like full frame mounts.
Yeah, but Sony is like, I would argue that Sony full frame is more common than Sony APS-C.
Yeah, it's not clear at all if these have full frame coverage. Like, no idea.
Not clear.
No idea what the image circle size is on these things.
I've got
just the filter thread is different.
Before you go on, I'm just looking at the product page. I've got 2 questions for you. One, why does the 28 millimeter one in parentheses say the one with one in all caps? Did
you not watch the product video, Daniel?
No, I didn't.
They explain that because if you're only going to buy one of these, that's the one you buy.
I see. Well, I guess they made that clear enough. I can't really disagree.
To be fair, I love this whole thing. I want all of them.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you're kind of dissing it because this also seems right up your alley. Let me ask my other question before we go on. I'm looking at what this includes. I'm looking at the one, obviously.
Sure. Why would you not?
And this thing I'm looking at says LightLeak 28mm Fuji X mount, 28mm full frame equivalent. Which, first off, that's not an included thing. I don't know why that's on there. But then the next.
You're right.
The next two are what really kind of gave me pause because it says front defender lens cap, which I think that's a pretty sweet lens cap.
It's a good lens cap.
And then rear lens cap.
Sure.
What I want to know is why does this lens include lens caps?
Because it's a plastic piece of glass. Like, it's not a piece of glass. It's a plastic lens element. I think it's going to scratch like crazy, but you are correct in that you will not be able to notice.
Yeah, and it's just going to increase the vibes.
I know.
Like, I think those lens caps are holding back the vibes.
I agree.
I'm just saying they could have really, saved a couple of dollars here.
I think that, like, when you get this thing, you take it out of the box, you scoop some sand into the front element, you just swirl it around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like that, you were talking a few weeks ago about that weird film that company makes where it's like every batch is different, you know. With a lens like this, you've got to make your lens unique. You need to have slightly different vibes than somebody else's vibes.
Daniel?
And so it's like you have to season that lens when you get it, like a cast iron pan, and make it yours.
I mean, that's another idea. Okay, Daniel, I have two ideas now. Season it like a cast iron pan. That's if we were still doing titled episodes, that would be the name of this episode.
That would be pretty good.
Yes. Anyways, we got a Kickstarter. What we're gonna do is we're gonna sell Vibe lenses, and we're gonna cut straight to the chase. I'm gonna call it Vibe lenses. But what we're gonna do is we are going to unique for each lens. We are going to culture fungus, and we're just going to grow fungus in the lenses before we sell them to people.
There you go.
And because it's organic, like, it's going to be different. Every lens is unique. This one might have red fungus. That one might have green fungus. I don't know. And because it's fungus, it's just going to get more vibey over time.
Yeah. You'll get some cool color casts.
Yeah. The longer you have it, the more awful it's going to get. It's perfect. We'll have artisan homegrown fungus lenses.
Yes, that's a perfect idea. I can't think of anything wrong with that.
Yep.
Might have some import and export problems.
It's what the people want, Daniel.
Is it?
Yes. If they pay extra, we'll bury the lens and then unbury it before we send it to them. We'll bury them for a year.
I'm glad you clarified that we would have to unbury the lens before sending it to them. Yeah, that's an important part of that process.
They can pay more money for longer term burial. So, like, we'll have a sand pit with our fungus lenses, and we'll just bury the lenses. And then if you want like a 6-month buried lens, it's an extra $100. 1 year, $200.
You're just gonna have this field of lenses.
Yeah. It's perfect.
Yeah, you could call it your field of view.
No. But only because it's too good. Yeah.
All right, tell me more about these things.
Okay, so obviously, like I said, it has this thing on the back where you can like decide how much leak you want behind the lens.
So can you go to 0?
Yeah, you can go to 0.
Okay.
Or you can go like full leak or whatever, and so you get all the streaking or whatever, like you had a bad lens on your camera. It's an f11 constant aperture lens. There's no focus ring or anything. You don't focus this thing. And so each lens has a different range of view, but like the 16 millimeter, I think it's something like 1 meter to infinity. And then if you get the 28 millimeter, which is the one, it's like also 1 meter to infinity. And then the 50 millimeter full frame equivalent, is 3 meters to infinity. So you don't focus them. They're f11 constant aperture. They went out of their way to say like, yeah, maybe these aren't going to be great for indoors because you can't open that up too much. And so it's going to be pretty low light. And what I said was, you mean it's going to make it better? I mean, I'm going to be shooting this thing at, ISO 25,600 anyway, because I'm really like crank that grain up.
Either that or you're going to be using a flash.
Yep. I'm going to have set like the grain on my Fujifilm to high.
Yes.
And so like, I can't even see the noise anyway. And I'm going to be using a flash. I'm going to get that pop-on flash. I'm going to point that thing straight down. Full flash. Yeah, this
just
F11...
like a cool pics from 1992.
F11 constant aperture, not an issue to me. No problem. And you don't have to focus it.
Yeah.
I mean, who needs autofocus when everything's in focus?
There you go.
It's the way that Apple's been doing it for years. We talked about being a plastic lens. We talked about the light leak on the back. We talked about being E, RF, XF, Z. Let's talk about image quality, Daniel.
All right. I'm sure it's fantastic.
Okay. Let's talk about the one first, which is the one you should have to buy. Like if you're going to buy this lens, buy the 28mm. And if I mean everybody should buy this lens. I feel like I need to buy this lens. I mean, it's only like $130.
I mean, it is honestly cheap enough that it's almost impulse purchase territory as far as camera gear goes.
If this was $30 cheaper, I would have already bought one. Anyways, horrible is the answer to the image quality. So the 28mm, what they say is about 40% of the center of the frame is in focus. I know, and so if you say you take a picture of somebody, they're 3 meters away. Mm-hmm. The center of the frame, 40% of the center of the frame is going to be, let's not call it sharp, but let's call it resolved.
Now, you're not talking, I mean, when you say 40% of the center frame, you're not talking about the f11, focus range aspect of it. You're just saying like optically, this lens is going to be in focus for the 40% of the center, but not for the rest of it.
Yeah, so like whenever we talk about like lens tests and stuff, and you're like, okay, we took a picture of this chart, and then you like zip over to the corner and go, okay, the corners are like a little softer than the center.
Sure.
It's like that, but for this one, the corners are like out of control. It's just like total like smear.
Yeah. Like it's not that there's a little bit of chromatic aberration. It's like it's literally not in focus.
Correct. Yeah. It's let's call it fall off.
Yeah. There you go. Focus fall off.
It falls off very artistically outside of 40%. If you go and you look at the 16mm, if you ever shot a Canon lens with the lens corrections off.
No, I haven't.
It looks like that, but way worse. The 16mm has wild vignetting, and I think that it's going to be like the very center of the frame, and then everything from there is going to look a little bit like you're going into like hyperspace.
So less than 40% on the 16mm.
Oh yeah, you got it. Like just go watch the video. It's something. It's something special. It is a look, and it is definitely something that maybe you have to get optically. It's the kind of thing where it's like, yeah, maybe I could make it look like that in post, but really, if you want to have the way that 16mm looks, you got to like set that light leak to 100% and just like go to town. Okay, and then the 50mm, tighter focal length. You're not, it's like it's still f11 or whatever, but more kind of in focus, less roll off. It's just like out of the wider you get, the more like the bend and the smearing of the outside of the frame.
Sure.
Are impacted. So
this is not up my alley. I've never been a person who wants my photos to intentionally look bad, but this seems very much up your alley.
Oh, absolutely. I really, really want one of these. I super want one. I was thinking that it would be really wild to put one of these things on it, like an A7 R5. Like take like a 62 megapixel.
Oh my gosh.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. This thing won't resolve to 62 megapixels. I don't think this thing resolves to 12 megapixels.
Yeah. Not with a plastic lens.
No, not really. You really get that. I think that what they're saying is like you're going to get that disposable camera look, but on your $2,000 mirrorless camera.
It's honestly cheap enough that I think they've hit on something good there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it couldn't be any more than this. You can get all three for $350.
Yeah, which is it's a
little bit of a discount.
A little bit, not a lot, but a little bit.
But if you're going to get one, just get the one.
That's one.
I mean, they're telling you which one to get.
Yeah.
Let's get the 20mm. Now, because it has filter threads on it, Daniel, my thought when I see this is why stop there?
We can always go deeper.
Exactly. I think that they should have shipped this in EF so that you could get one of those module 8 tuners and then put that behind this thing.
Oh, that'd be good. That'd be pretty good.
And then you could put a pro mist on the front. Actually, I was thinking that you could get one of those streaking anamorphic filters.
Oh yeah.
Put that on the front.
It's too much. It's just too much.
Oh man. Then you just shoot it at night at like 512 ISO,
gosh.
like 5,1200 ISO at night with the streaking filters, light leak to 100%, and then you just shine a flashlight into the back of it, it would look insane.
Yeah, it would. Insane is a good word for it.
It's perfect.
So are these out now or?
Man, you could buy one of these things right now.
Yeah, they're probably not flying off the shelves, but they were just announced.
I would be shocked if they weren't.
You think they're still in stock?
I mean, it seems like it says it will ship as soon as Monday.
Wow.
Which, like, why am I not buying one right now?
It says adventure assurance backed, and at first I thought that was some sort of like you can insure this lens, if you drop it while you're on vacation. And again, it's like that's just going to increase the vibes. It's just going to make it more.
Man, you can. I mean, some of the things that they say to add to this is like, do you also want to put a variable ND that costs more than the lens?
Obviously, yes.
Yeah, let's do it.
You're not going to need a variable ND with F11, be my guess.
We should shoot our next video with one of these.
Oh man, I would love to see the look on our client's face.
It looks like you were going for a different kind of something. Is this the color grade? Can we like make this different? No, sorry, that's in camera.
Yeah, we did that optically.
Yep.
Wow.
I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah.
So Daniel, I actually have a topic for today. How long are we doing? Even have time for a topic?
I mean, we're not at time yet. I think we should go for it.
All right. So I have a topic for today.
Okay.
This is our 100th episode.
It is, which is a long time.
I don't know what this gray camera discussion is about, so we're going to move that up.
Come back to that.
I don't know what that is. Okay. 100 episodes. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that's a lot of episodes.
We took that break, so I mean that means we've basically been doing this for 2 years.
That's a good point.
And I feel like we've come a long way in 2 years somehow, and in other ways have really regressed.
You think so?
Just desperately. So I guess like one, thanks to all the listeners probably, or whatever, sticking around. That's good.
Yeah, I mean they listened to you talk about cameras for like well over 100 hours. That's a lot.
It's more than my wife has. She just leaves the room.
Yeah.
That's not true. Anyways, she puts up with me. It's fantastic. So I kind of want to talk about I feel like you come a long way in 2 years. I mean, in the last 2 years, we've come from making just total fun of Nikon as a brand and just like the butt end of every joke to now Nikon's really doing something.
Yeah. I mean, it's not really a joke anymore.
Like if somebody that's the arc of this podcast, in my opinion, is Nikon's journey from zero to hero, and then as we're going, the fall of Fujifilm.
It kind of feels that way, honestly.
To me, we fast forward 18 months, Fujifilm is like the Dark Emperor.
I think you're kind of joking a little bit, but at the same time, like, I don't know.
I think
a little bit.
I think that they see the dollar signs and like it's going to get weird.
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking. I'm just saying, like we're just tracking the fall of Fujifilm. It's coming, and the rise of Nikon.
Yes, the rise of Nikon.
Anyways, so that's the arc of the podcast. But I want to talk a little bit about kind of our camera gear journey a little bit, since this is Gear Podcast, and maybe kind of queue up a few things as far as like where do you think your camera gear life is going, and what are some things that maybe like you're missing from your current camera setup, and like what are things that you feel like maybe you take for granted, and just as like some framework for this conversation, a lot's probably maybe an exaggeration. We have like a side business that we do, like mostly videography services, but then also some photography stuff.
Yeah.
And we'll shoot like events, and we'll do like some narrative videos with like B-roll and A-roll and that sort of thing. And that's kind of like a good chunk of what we shoot. We've done like a little bit other things here and there. We help somebody shoot a TV show and blah, 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 blah. And so like that's mostly what we shoot. And I feel like, as we keep doing this podcast, whatever, we're going to keep doing that kind of content and maybe like grow that business a little bit to do more, more stories, maybe some more sketches or narrative, but like, anything in that 3 to 20 minute video window.
Yeah.
Eventually I'm going to shoot my little short film if I can ever get around to like finishing the script. That's just like on the back burner indefinitely for the last like 4 years. But we're going to do it, Daniel. We're going to shoot a short film. Anyways, so like that's kind of, I feel like, where we are as Daniel and Lucas. And so kind of with that being the framework of like what we typically shoot, I'm kind of curious, where do you think things are going? And where I want to start this off is like you're selling off camera gear left and right now.
It's kind of true.
And like you're like, here, take my old GX85, and like I'm selling my XT30, and I'm selling the 27 millimeter. And like it feels like you're just shedding Fujifilm camera.
I'm trying to sell the XT5, but I can't find anybody to buy it. It's a sad day.
I gotta like move a few things around, just like next week. I swear. Anyways, but like after you sell your XT5 and you sell the XT30, you're gonna have one camera, Daniel.
Yeah, well,
just one.
I think I'm gonna end up keeping the XT30 as a backup, because I was going to keep my GX85 and I'm gonna be selling that. So I'm gonna have XH2S and XT30 at least for the time being. But I mean, really, I don't use the XT30 that much. So it's like I have one camera.
Where do you see this all going, Daniel? As far as like the things that we shoot. Like right now we're both like in the Fujifilm and our cameras match, and it's wonderful until you betray me. Like say in the next 2 years, where do you think you're going?
Yeah, it's a hard question, because I feel like you have another question on here that's, what gear do you take for granted? And I would say, even as much time as we spend on this podcast talking about new cameras and new exciting features and things we wish the XH2S could do, like it's not, we always make the statement like, use the gear you have and every camera is good now. We say things like that. People online say things like that. But I feel like it really has gotten to the point where that's true. And like for me, the XH2S is a good enough camera for both photo and video that I can't honestly say it's holding me back, like from anything we've worked on, like our normal types of projects that we do. And so I'd say I almost take that for granted, to where I feel like I don't really need anything else. When I'm using my camera, I have very few moments where I'm thinking, I really wish I could do this thing that it's not doing.
Time code sync.
Yes. Yeah. There's things, time code sync, I wish the autofocus was better than it is, and stuff like that, but it just doesn't feel like it's really holding me back. So, I mean, one possibility would just be to keep using the same camera because it's fine, but I don't know. I don't feel like that's the reality of what's going to happen for me. And I don't know if I'm going to switch away from it because of a specific need, or just because I think I'm the kind of person who just kind of gets bored with stuff after a while and just wants to change it up and experience something new. And it may not even necessarily be that the new thing is better, but I just feel like over the course of my life and my journey with photography, for me, it's more fulfilling if I can like look back and say, I've had experience using Panasonic cameras, and I've had experience using Canon cameras, and like it's just kind of fun to try out a new system, get to know the ins and outs of it. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm heavily invested in Fuji, like definitely not as much as you. I only have a couple of lenses, and I'm paring down my cameras, and so for me, it would be less of a burden to switch to something else. I'm
like so deep into Fuji.
You really
the
are.
way that I imagine my Fuji journey ending is have you the third, or depending on how you count it, sixth Star Wars movie, was it Revenge of the Sith, where like Obi-Wan and Anakin like fight on the lava planet, and at the very end like Anakin like gets cut into pieces or whatever, and Obi-Wan's like, "You were the chosen one." It's like that. Because Fuji is going to ascend as the Dark Lord. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to have to go hide in the desert.
I thought when you started making a movie reference here, I thought you were going to say that at the end, it was like that scene at I think it's Raiders of the Lost Ark, whenever, pushing the cart into the gigantic warehouse, it's just full of boxes. I thought it was going to be like, that's you with lenses.
They don't have that many lenses, Daniel.
If they did, though.
Yes. Anyways, so what I'm hearing is that you've done the Canon thing, you've done the Fuji thing, you've done the Panasonic thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, Sony and Nikon. Is that what I'm hearing, Daniel? Is that like you're gonna go Sony?
I don't see it. I don't see going. I don't feel like I'm a Sony bro at heart.
Nikon then.
I mean, honestly, I feel like I want to go back to Panasonic. We've talked about that on the show so many times. I think
I have a list here of reasons why Daniel's gonna buy a Panasonic camera.
And I mean, I think that's another thing that has really changed a lot since this podcast started, is that L mount went from being like this weird system to being a serious thing with a lot of choices. So I could see that happening. I could see Black Magic, getting like a video.
We did have to talk you off the edge of buying a Pocket 6K.
Multiple
Not Pocket
times,
6K, Cinema 6K.
Yeah.
Lenses, box camera,
Yeah.
LiDAR, video feature first, SSD recording, highest performance.
You're just listing off random camera concepts now.
Internal 32-bit recording with external module.
So I don't know. I've got I'm going to start feeling restless about my camera setup at some point, but right now, today, I don't feel that way. I feel like what I have now is meeting my needs, and I guess it's like there have been exciting camera releases, but there hasn't been anything that came out that truly made me feel like this is the camera I want.
It felt like you were going to buy a Pixis for a period of time there.
Yeah.
Like we were all thinking this is going to happen. And it feels like the main thing that stopped you was that it only records raw internal.
Absolutely. Yeah. If it was H.265, I'd probably have one of those. But that's a pretty big, for what we've done with projects, that is a pretty big deal breaker. If we were making short films, it wouldn't be.
No.
But
that added workflow of having to deal with raw for the stuff that we make, which is like, this is the conversation for probably everybody who like is into camera gear. Is like, what are you doing and what do you make? And it's like, oh, this is basically the perfect camera, except it adds one more step to my workflow.
Yeah.
And now that's going to take me more time.
Yep. So a little disappointing. I still think the DJI Ronin 4D is a really cool camera. And it's like, it wouldn't be good for general cinema camera use, but for the types of projects we do, I think it would be really good, which is kind of a interesting situation.
Yeah, you could get some really fun like run and gun stuff with that. I feel like where you would struggle is the telephoto. Like they're sometimes getting that long compression look is really, really nice.
Yeah.
And you're going to be pretty limited on a Ronin 4D. I don't
know what they offer there. I don't know what the biggest.
I think it's just a matter of weight. You're probably going to cap out around 75 or 80
well,
millimeters.
but like, I wonder if you can lock off the gimbal.
I think you can lock axes. But
so
still,
if you could lock it off, then like maybe you could. Cause it supports E-mount lenses. Like, can I throw a 70-200?
I'm just imagining a chicken cam with a 72, like a 150 to 600 on it. They're going to snap right off.
Okay, I am going to say though. I'm going to say we would get some really interesting content for this podcast if I bought a Ronin 4D. Like, what if you show up to record next week and it's just like on the table right here? Can you imagine?
It would be the only thing we talked about for like 3 episodes.
I'm gonna think on that.
Maybe just return it. I'm like, Daniel, what are you doing?
So that's where I'm at right now. Is I like what I have, but I'm gonna get restless. I'm gonna want to get something else. I just don't know what it is.
When the the S1H Mark II comes out, whenever that is, eventually
next, it has to
call it next May. Since they can only release cameras in May once a year. I mean, is that it? Is that like
it could be
Daniel's going to break down and that's...
I think if that camera existed and, like let's just say, real basic specs, let's say it's, a full frame L mount, has kind of like the modern set of features. Cause like the S1H is really kind of long in the tooth now. But
if you ask me, I think like what an S1H would be is a Z8, but Panasonic.
I mean, honestly,
like
if it
stack sensor, 45 megapixel, like the whole 9 yards, like basically a Z8 but Panasonic.
If it existed, I would probably be looking at getting that because I really like L mount. I actually really like Panasonic's colors. Like just the photos out of the S5 Mark II, I think look really good.
They look really good.
You think they're oversaturated?
Was so oversaturated,
but I like that look. So I think that combined with Panasonic's video chops, like if that camera existed today, I would probably buy that camera.
I think you would like a Samsung phone, Daniel.
Never gonna happen.
I think it would be your jam.
No,
like I think not. They crank that saturation.
Yeah, they do.
They'll just turn it up. It's different. You're talking about how you like change.
Nope.
I'm just saying.
Not going that far.
S24 Ultra. You could do circle to search. That sounds exciting.
No, it doesn't. No, it
100 times zoom. Can't do that on a mirrorless camera.
All right, so moving on. Why don't you answer that question?
What does my future look like? Daniel, I have a 16 millimeter 23, 56, 80, 50 to 140, 17 to 70, 18 to 55.
You're pretty deep into Fuji lenses, but I also think that
Is that all? Is that all the lenses that I have for Fuji? I thought I had one more.
So you've got so many you can't remember.
Well, there's another 16 that's still floating around there.
Yeah,
We could count that.
Yeah.
I wish I had that 75 that you have. I really like that 75 millimeter. Anyways, I only have 7 lenses.
Yeah. I mean,
and
it's
2
a lot,
cameras.
but
And I'm about to buy your other camera, so that makes 3 cameras. But then I have to sell one of them, so that'll be back down to 2.
I just feel like it's never as painful to switch as you imagine. Like, I mean, selling them would be annoying. I'm not saying it wouldn't, but like cost-wise, you wouldn't lose out that much. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've already paid for my Fuji professional services.
Like while we've been talking on this podcast.
Yeah, I signed up for it. I mean, I have at least a year with that. So I feel like for me, it just so depends upon what Fuji does. I love the photos I get out of my camera. I feel like recently with some of the stuff that we've shot, even still, we're fighting for light.
Yeah.
We shoot so much low light stuff that I could see myself wanting to eventually go full frame. Ugh.
It was hard for you to even say that. I saw it.
It was real tough.
Uh-huh.
I feel like there's something wrong with APS-C and everyone needs to calm down. Super 35 is the real format.
Well, it's frustrating for us that we're just frequently in situations where we have to shoot in low light because there are so many people that use cameras for all kinds of things that's just not a consideration at all.
Whenever we shoot in F-Log 2 and you're shooting at base ISO 1250, that's like 640 or what. It's like one stop more than if you were shooting full frame.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is this how full frame people feel all the time? Because I feel like I can't cut the light enough. I'm having to like slap NDs on everything. If I want, I can barely shoot wide open. I'm shooting like f5.6 or f8 all the time. And it's legitimately hard in non-indoor lighting or even indoor, just like regular indoor lighting. It's really hard to shoot in F-Log 2 without doing something to account for like how sensitive the sensor is.
Yeah.
And you get that 14-bit readout and all that delicious dynamic range. And it's great. But I'm like, if I was full frame, then I have to deal with this all the time. Then I'd be really sad about it.
I don't know. I just feel like more commonly when I shoot, I'm having to compromise on, like, I really wish I could get a little more depth of field in this shot, but I'm just going to have to shoot it wide open because I need as much light as I can get. Yeah. And I feel like that's the advantage to full frame is that you can kind of make a artistic choice more there.
Sure, for sure. So I do think that maybe long term it's tough because it's like when I think about the photo things that I shoot, like outside of business things, like I'm just vibe cam for days, right? I want to shoot more film. And I've like really enjoyed doing that. Like I want to get a half frame camera and I want to eventually get a medium format camera, which the first medium format camera I get is probably gonna be the one that I make you 3D print me. And that one's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, that's gonna be pretty good.
And so like I want to do more film stuff. I want to try shooting like color positive and that sort of thing. And so I see myself growing as far as like my personal photography, just way more into film. But even with that, like a small camera that I can do snapshots with, the Fujifilm is exactly what I want for personal photography. And I feel like for most of what I shoot, like quote unquote personal, I could see myself consolidating that down into like an X100-6.
Interesting.
And then like for things where I need more distance or I need more professional things, because basically like the way I split that is like I'll shoot my XT3 for things that are simple, which will soon be your XT5 and it's going to be awesome. And then for like more professionally things, I'll grab my XH2S. And I could see a world where that XH2S grew into a Nikon or a Panasonic or a Canon. Mm-hmm. I just don't know if I ever go into Sony. I like the Sony stuff and I like their video stuff, but it just, I don't know.
I don't know why it's such a turnoff. I mean, their specs are good. They've got cameras across the whole price range. I don't know why I feel so weird about the idea of buying a Sony.
I think that their autofocus is incredible and I would love to have that in my life, but I think what always gets me is that I can't get past their codecs. Like, I would love to have a camera that could shoot XOCN. I think that's a really cool compromise between RAW and not RAW. And I think that like S-Log 3 is good whenever it's the 10-bit stuff, and S-Log 2 is decent. But I guess I'm still stuck with the A7 III when I think of Sony.
Yeah.
And when I think of like the A7 III and what that camera can do, and it's not fair. I know this is totally not fair. But I'm like, okay, let's look at the codecs and what it can shoot. It can shoot 100 megabits per second in 8-bit, and those files are garbage. And I know I know. Like if you have like an A7, an A7 IV, or like an A7S III, you can shoot like 400 megabit per second all eye, and you can get like decent codecs, and those cameras shoot really good footage.
Yeah.
But I just like I've never been in love with the Sony look or like their codecs, and I've just been so it's like I got this impression on them, and I feel like I need to get over myself and get a better impression of Sony.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean. It's like I feel like I could picture myself with a Sony cinema camera, like an FX6.
Oh yeah.
But
oh yeah.
I just have a hard time picturing me being like an A7 IV kind of guy.
Yeah, it's just like I want more dynamic range and I want better rolling shutter. And there isn't like the compromised camera for me, and that like I would love to have an A7S III with like its really good low light performance, but also like it's a 12 megapixel sensor, and we do enough like mix of things that I kind of need something that's more hybrid than that.
Yeah. And
like the A7R5 is too slow of a readout speed, even though it's like an incredible photo camera with its higher megapixel. And like, yeah, the A7R4 is in the middle with its 30 megapixel, but even still, it's like a 25 millisecond readout. And honestly, the XH2S is a better video camera.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I just kind of, there's no like perfect Sony for me. And maybe like that's also my Sony problem. Whereas, I don't know, I could see myself like growing into like a Z8.
I could see that too.
That camera is slick. But also like you, I really love all the Panasonic video features, and the face detect autofocus is, now that it's there, is decent. And I feel like full Vlog is so good. And Panasonic is probably where I would go, mostly because I don't want to have to like mix footage, and you probably have more of a propensity to move towards
there you go
Panasonic, and I've been mostly happy with Fujifilm.
What I think is really funny about this whole discussion is that I feel like when we started this podcast, in one of our earlier episodes, we might have said this idea, but I think we definitely both felt this way, that it was like people treat Fuji cameras as their fun personal camera, but they do their real work with like a Canon or whatever.
Yeah.
And
it's literally what I just said. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. And it's like, we kind of felt that way, like, but Fuji's really good. And I think we do feel like the XH2S, absolutely holds up against, in the video space, especially holds up against a lot of these other things. But it's funny though, that after all this time, you're kind of like, yeah, I could kind of see, using Fuji for personal stuff, but something else for business.
It is very funny. I do think that the full frame RAW files that you're going to get off of like a high megapixel, like a modern full frame camera are going to be better.
Yeah.
Like I think that the XT5 really holds up with its 40 megapixel sensor and has like decent noise performance, and like it's a really, really good camera. I think that the Canon R5 Mark II or the Z8 take better pictures. Like if you're looking at just like the pure raw files and what you can do with them, they're just going to be better.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me,
but we're talking about like 10% better, Daniel. Well, like not enough to matter.
Calm down. One thing that kind of bothers me, I guess, is like, I feel like if I was invested in any of these other brands, Canon, Nikon, Sony, if I wanted to spend $4,000 on a camera, there's a path, right? Like it's like they have something at almost every price point up to, $5,000-$6,000. Like if it was Canon, I could be thinking about a C70 or something.
Sure.
And one thing that is kind of problematic for Fuji at the professional level is there's not really an upgrade path like that.
Yeah. Like we essentially have maxed out. Like in 5 days when I buy your XT5, I will have like the top end for Fuji, like ignoring the GFX line.
Yeah, that's kind of a totally different thing, I think.
It is. Like that's it. I mean, I have like their two best cameras, and those cap out at $2,500, and they are absolutely competitive in my opinion with everything that's at that price point. But there's stuff above that price point that is better.
Yeah. Like if it was Canon, I could see C70, I could see R5 Mark II, and I feel like I'm getting to a point like, financially and, using camera for work, things like that, I could see getting like an R5 Mark II.
Yeah.
But there's no Fuji option for that. So.
No, not really. It's like there's a point where depending upon what you shoot that you can grow out of Fuji. And I don't know if Fujifilm's ever going to be able to shake the fact that like they're a hobbyist brand.
Well, and I would argue that I don't know if they want to, like if they're the way they're kind of going where they're making their cameras into these unattainable, rare commodity type things like we've talked about in some of the past weeks. Like, it doesn't seem like they're trying to offer more value for the money, and I don't know. I don't foresee them offering what I would be looking for to grow. I think it's really how I feel.
Yeah, I guess I feel the same way, in that I never really thought that I would grow necessarily out of Fujifilm, and I love my Fuji cameras, but it does seem to me that ultimately, like, I could see myself selling everything but my 3 favorite prime lenses and just keeping an X-T5 and having like my 16, my 23, and my 56, and then just sell everything else and sell the XH2S and then move into L mount.
Yeah.
And like ultimately, I mean, like, that seems to me like probably the way that it goes. Like, if we loop back on this at episode 200 in whatever 2 years, and Panasonic has somehow released the S1H Mark II.
Don't hold your breath.
No kidding. I could see moving in that direction, especially if we grow like the different types of projects and expand our client base and like do more and more video work. It just seems like we're like, if we want to improve the product that we deliver, like, one of the ways we can do that is improve the camera. But honestly, I guess, like, you and I both know that the real answer is like, you need to improve audio and you improve lighting.
Yeah.
And like all that sort of thing before you upgrade the camera. Because I mean, it goes back to this other point of like, what gear do you take for granted? It's all these accessories around the camera. I mean, lighting has been monumental, and like learning good lighting and getting way better at walking into a room and going, they're going to go there. We need to light from that side. Okay, so we need like a practical there, and let's turn this on, and like, we need 3 lights for this one or 4 for that one, and being able to like set that up and visualize it and have all of the right lights that match in temperature and blah, 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 blah. Like, that makes or breaks it. And it, like, we could be shooting on an iPhone and like, or like a ZV-10, and it would look incredible if we can get the lighting right.
Yeah. And I think we've gotten some pretty good, like some of the investments we've made there have really paid off pretty well. I'm really happy with that softbox I got, just like a usability. Like, this is super easy to pop up and take down. We also recently started using that Amaran tube light, and kind of in general using more practicals in the scene and, stuff like that.
That Amaran tube light has been awesome.
Yeah. It's like that stuff really increases your production value. And some of that stuff is honestly what can set you apart from anybody else with a camera, is knowing how to do that, taking the time to do that.
Absolutely.
That's what, like, if we compare the projects we do to some of the other, like similar things we've seen, like, that's kind of what can set it apart more than like, this camera has better rolling shutter.
Yeah, like, it's like, doesn't matter, like, oh, they were shooting on a C400 or whatever. It's never that. It's always the lighting. Yeah. And like, you can go back and look at the Creator movie where they shot the whole thing on FX3s, right? It's the lighting, it's the production, it's all that stuff around it.
I almost feel like at this level, at the level we're at, getting a better camera is almost, it's like it's for you, not for the product,
Absolutely.
Like it might be easier to use. It might give you a more pleasant experience, like with color grading, things like that. And I mean,
it's super fun.
Let's be real. We're into camera gear. Like, it's fun having a good camera. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
It's like everything's camera gear, but nothing's more camera gear than a camera.
Exactly. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think you should vilify people for wanting a better camera, but it is, you kind of have to think about it that way, where after a certain point, stop lying to yourself and saying, I'm going to get a better result from a better camera, because that's probably not, like, out of the things you could spend your money on, that's probably not where to spend the money to improve it past a certain point.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good point, good spot to wrap this up. I did want to kind of queue up, like, what's the next most immediate thing, even though we're probably like way over at this point.
No, that's fine.
I think for something that maybe we've lost the thread on, but is absolutely next in the queue, is I want to get one of those like Blue Sync Atomos timecode things.
Yeah.
Because you can do the wireless sync to the XH2Ss. And then we need to get one of those 32-bit Zoom recorders.
Yep.
It's like the Element
H4 Essential.
H4 Essential, yeah. We want to get one of the Zoom H4 Essentials, and then either the Rode wireless or the Deity wireless.
Yeah, something better for wireless audio.
Yeah, that does 32-bit. and it's more reliable than those DJIs because whenever they get half full, they drift.
Yeah.
And that's I think that's the next step forward for us is like introducing time code and improving audio quality, which like our audio quality is pretty stinking good, especially with like the tools that we use. But I think it'd be 50% better.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's probably what, like, sometimes that stuff's a little less exciting, but like that's really what makes a project look professional.
Mm-hmm.
So
for sure.
I kind of feel like, if I was gonna summarize what we talked about, to me, it seems like we've kind of grown up a little bit with camera stuff over the past 100 episodes. Like I think when we first started doing this, we were just getting into doing paid work. I don't even know if we had done a paid project.
We had client, like some stuff behind us, but we were just kind of getting into it. Yeah.
We were kind of, it was newer for us. And now, we've got 2 years of experience doing some of these projects. We've got, pretty good gear and we've done a lot of stuff. So we've been able to see a lot of, projects go from start to finish. And some of these opinions I'm hearing about, like what kind of camera we would use, what we think is important. I don't know. I feel like we've, learned a lot, and probably like this is probably a pretty similar arc to what a lot of people go through.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Yep. Except we haven't switched to Sony yet.
That's it for the show today. Thanks for joining us, and if you liked it, tell a friend so they can check it out too. You can find out more about the show at www.cameragearpodcast.com, and you can find us on Twitter @CameraGearPod. We'll be back with more next week.